and prevail in your fantasy football league with the help of our starting lineup. At host to quarterback the show, we have Nick Giacobbe. Up next, a dual threat in Dynasty and Daily Fantasy, we have Cody Repass. And finally, working the waiver wire, we have Nick Cap. These are your playmakers that will provide you with sleepers, breakouts, and busts to help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome everybody to episode 12 of the PrimeTime Fantasy Football Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, in the hopes that we help you prevail in Week 5 and the rest of the 2021 fantasy football season. I am your host, Nick Giacobbe, and joining me is Cody Repass.
What's going on, buddy?
And Nick Cap Salas.
How we doing, guys?
Nick, no Jets hat today after their big win on Sunday. You're not rocking the Jets hat before the London game.
I can't find it. I must have thrown it in celebration after that big win. But it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to have to find it after our London win this Sunday.
We'll see how that goes. That's going to be really interesting. We might be recording during the London game. So with that said,
we will be live during the London game.
If this is your first time listening, welcome. We do this show on Tuesdays and Fridays. It'll drop. And then we also have a live show on Sundays. So the next time you'll hear from us is Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We go live on our Twitter, our Facebook, and our YouTube channels. It's an hour of fun. We start off with a daily fantasy football segment. Cody gives you his best bargains for the week. We talk about the injury updates at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, who's in and who's out. And the best part is we answer all of your questions throughout the entirety of the show. If you have questions about your lineup, daily fantasy, start, sit, if you want to trash talk us, if you're in leagues with us, that's fine too. So come in. We fixed the Twitter problem. Basically, we have Nick watching the Twitter chat. So if you go on Twitter, we'll answer your question there too. So again, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. The rest of our shows drop on Tuesdays and Fridays. The audio version you could find on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, basically anywhere where you could find your podcasts. If you are on Apple, though, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. It really does help. And if you want to watch us on Tuesdays or Fridays, there's a video version of the show on our YouTube channel, PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. If you want to follow us on social media, and please do, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram is PrimeTimeFFPod, and Facebook is PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Alrighty, boys, it is week 5, so let's get into the swing of things. We're going to start off with some injury updates and news. We have a slew of them. So we're recording on Wednesday night, Wednesday, the October 6th, and the show's dropping on the 8th. So this is the latest injury news that we know of as of Wednesday night. Obviously, Thursday Night Football happened last night. Hopefully the Seahawks won, but I don't really like them against the Rams. So anyway, so let's start off with some injury news that we know of. Will Fuller's going on the IR. He's going to be out at least 3 weeks with a broken finger. I don't think we have to touch on this much because I think we've all said he should be dropped in all formats. But if you guys want to say anything about this one, I'll let the floor. You guys can take it.
Nope.
No, yeah, I'm right where I was at before. Will Fuller's droppable. I think we all agree Waddle is startable, matchup dependent, and Gesicki, looks pretty good. So I think that's where all of us stand.
It seems like it goes Waddle, Gesicki, and then even Devontae Parker is rosterable at this point, but I think Will Fuller is not rosterable in just about any league at this point. Second part of injury news, Christian McCaffrey was back at practice today. Again, this is on Wednesday. He practiced with full pads for the first time. Matt Rule said he was testing out his hamstring. So there's an outside chance. I mean, is he on IR? I forget if he went on IR or not. He's not on IR. Yeah, that's what I thought, because I saw there's a chance he could even play this Sunday. I don't think he is. But by the outside chance, again, this show is coming out on Friday. By the slight sliver chance that he's cleared for Sunday, are you guys starting Christian McCaffrey? Cody?
If he's active, you play Christian McCaffrey. They saw all they needed to from Chuba Hubbard. He's not that good.
What about you, Nick? If he's active, are you starting Christian McCaffrey?
If Christian McCaffrey is 60% of the player that he is, he's giving you 15 points in a game. So you play him if he's out there.
The Panthers are 3-1, and I know they weren't predicted to be a good team, but you got to look at where they are. They're 3-1. That's a team that could – at that point, you're looking at playoffs. Like, not this soon, but you're looking at your record and saying, hey, we got something
Their
right now.
Schedule's nice.
Yeah, the schedule's nice, and on top of
Very
that,
favorable.
so I don't think they rush him back, but at the same time, I think if he's good to go, then they're playing him. So if he's playing, I think he's got to be in your lineups. But I personally don't think he's going to play this week. I know he was estimated to be out for 3 weeks. It's only been a week. He's only missed 1 week, so that just seems too soon to me. But I think next week, if he's already practicing, next week maybe possible. I forget who he's facing next week, but yeah, good news for Christian McCaffrey owners. Bad news for anybody who had the number one waiver wire and picked up Chuba Hubbard last week. Logan Thomas was put on the IR this morning. That means he has to be out for 3 weeks, but what the report said was a minimum of 4 weeks is to be expected. He can return week 10 against the Bucks. That's what they're expecting, at least. So it's a big hole. If you drafted Logan Thomas, you probably drafted him as a guy you'd play every single week, and he's been a solid tight end start. Taylor Heineke's been leaning on him and Terry McLaurin. So you now got to go find a tight end. So I don't think this really affects the Washington football team as an offense. Heineke's not really startable in fantasy, and Terry McLaurin's still going to be Terry McLaurin, and Gibson's going to be Gibson. I'm not worried about those two. I'm more worried about if you do have Logan Thomas, what do you do now? So I'll start with Cody. Who's a guy that you could play at tight end now if you had Logan Thomas that you kind of got to start for the next 4 to 5 weeks?
It really just depends what's on your waiver wire. I mean, you probably missed out on Dalton Schultz. You got to hope like there's a Tyler Conklin or an Austin Hooper, or maybe you can get a shot at like a Jared Cook coming off the touchdown on Monday Night Football. It's really slim pickings. You might take a shot on someone like a Max Williams who's getting a few targets a game. He's not going to score. He just gets no looks around the red zone. But personally, Dawson Knox is the guy I would go for, just because with tight ends, if you're that far down deep in the barrel, you're wanting a touchdown. You don't care if he catches one ball for 7 yards. If he scores, he's gonna not kill you, and that's all you need.
How about you, Nick? Who are some tight ends you think that could be targeted? And we're also assuming that you knew that Logan Thomas was injured and would miss some time. Hopefully you went out and tried to get a tight end on your waiver wire. We gave you a couple of them on Tuesday show. So Nick, who's a guy that you think you could slot in here for the next 4 to 5 weeks? Or a couple guys you could kind of shop around with?
It's going to be so tough at this point, knowing that he's out for 4 weeks, to probably pick someone off now that's way after the waivers. But, Jared Cook came off a nice week, but the Raiders struggled to guard the tight end position most of the season anyway. I think Cody now's turned around on Dalton Schultz. Schultz would be the guy I'd go after.
No.
Schultz, I like. Jasicki should be gone.
You guys need a season-long bet on Schultz. We're gonna figure this out after the show. We need some kind of wager on the season for Dalton Schultz at this point.
I'm so down.
For me, start thinking about it. If it pops up, we'll throw it in at some point in the show. You can use our private chat on the show to figure that out. For me, if Mike Gesicki, Dawson Knox, or Dalton Schultz was on your waiver wire and you got one of them, I think you're looking pretty good considering the situation. If they're on your waiver wire now, pick them up. I don't think any of those three will be at this point. You probably did miss out. A guy like Zach Ertz might be there, though. We're going to talk about him in our lock and flop segment, so I'm not going to get into his stats and all that stuff, but Zach Ertz might be one you want to look into. But it's tough. If you knew that Logan Thomas was injured, you knew he was going to be out a couple weeks, it was your job to go out and be proactive and get a tight end off the waiver wire this week. Nick was the number one waiver in my league, and I knew he was going to get Damien Williams. But I have a tight end problem. I do have Gesicki, but I'm not super confident in him. So I actually had Dawson Knox as my number one waiver going into this week. Just knowing that I needed the tight end and I don't need the running back as much as I would have loved to have Damian Williams. So again, you got to look at your team and evaluate what you really need and can't neglect that position and score 2 points every week. So hopefully you picked up somebody. Next up, Teddy Bridgewater is still in the concussion protocol. He did not practice on Wednesday. Drew Lock was taking first team reps. They're facing the Steelers on Sunday, and they do have a pretty good defense most of the time. And not against Rodgers and not against the Bills. Or they actually didn't do terrible against the Bills, but they still have a ferocious front seven, and TJ Watt should be suiting up this week. So Cody, let's start with you here. How does Teddy Bridgewater being out, again, we're assuming that he's out on Sunday. So let's talk with that first. If Teddy
He'll play.
Not concussion, you think he's playing? You have no doubts about that.
I mean, he can't practice until Friday. He can't clear the concussion protocol until Friday. But all indications around Broncos beat writers are they expect him to be cleared on Friday and be active on Sunday for the game.
So how do you think he'll be limited at all Sunday? Do they limit him? You think so? If
it's going to be business as
Cortland
usual.
Sutton. So you think Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Sutton's a play and Tim Patrick's a fringe.
If you're depending on how deep you're down, I wouldn't play him over higher end guys. But I mean, the Broncos game plan is going to be just like it has been every week. They're going to try and control the clock. Teddy Bridgewater is not going to try and burn you deep. He might toss out one every now and then to keep the safeties honest, but without the speed on the offense, it's really going to drag down. The Broncos are going to be just a slog team. Just try to win on defense and score 15, 17 points.
And hypothetically, if he doesn't play, are you even starting Cortland Sutton, or is he hitting the bench?
No.
What about
I would not play
backs?
a soul. No, I would not play a Denver Bronco if Drew Lock is the quarterback.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I have Devonta Williams. I didn't know the beat writer stuff, so I'm glad that you follow them because Chris Carson's not looking good tomorrow night. He might be out. I picked up Alex Collins in my league, and I'm like, just in case. But I don't think I'd play him anyway. I have a Gio Bernard and Samaje Perine too. Just in case Devonta Williams is stuck there with Drew Lock, I wouldn't feel comfortable starting him. What about you, Nick? If in case Teddy's injured, are you comfortable playing any Broncos, even Noah Fant, or is no Broncos you would play?
I wouldn't play a single Bronco if Bridgewater is playing or if he's not playing in this matchup against.
Oh, so you're avoiding all Broncos at this point?
Yeah, I think both the guards being dinged up, you saw how much it affected them against Baltimore, and Pittsburgh's not much of a better matchup for that. Their best bet is their defense getting stops and getting turnovers. That's really the best way they're going to get the ball down the field. I think no Hamler to burn them over the top, no Judy to be the reliable outlet. I think Fant might be the only one that I'd consider playing this week.
Speaking of Judy, we didn't put this in the news because it just wasn't relevant enough, but I did see a report earlier that he is ahead of schedule, or he's on schedule and looking pretty good. So we may be talking about Jerry Judy in a couple weeks. T. Higgins practiced today. It seems like he's on track once again to play for the Bengals. He had a shoulder injury that kept him out of Thursday Night Football last week. They're going up against those Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. So, Cody, is T. Higgins a guy you're locking in this week, and how does that affect the rest of the Bengals offense?
I mean, yeah, if T. Higgins is healthy and active, you're playing him. It means less targets for Tyler Boyd, more than likely. I mean, I said it from day one. You can't replace a long-lost connection. Joe Burrow is always going to have that connection with Jamar Chase. He was always going to be the alpha as soon as he stepped on that field. T. Higgins is also an alpha. It means that Tyler Boyd is the one that's going to get left out. He's still going to be okay. He's still a good PPR guy. He just takes a big hit with both playing.
Yeah, I'm right with you on there. You hit the nail on the head. Tyler Boyd's the one that's going to suffer the most. He had 20 fantasy points last week, 22, I think. I think he had 15 the week before. So Boyd started to get going when Higgins was out, but with Higgins in, it's just tough to manage all those targets. But Jair Alexander is going to be on somebody. We don't know who he's going to be on. So who knows? Maybe this week, if he's on Chase, we start seeing Higgins and Boyd get a little bit more involved. But good for Joe Burrow. If you have Joe Burrow in a league, I think he's very startable this week. I have Russell Wilson in my dynasty against those Rams, and he doesn't play well against the Rams. I have a decision to make tomorrow morning. Again, we're recording on Wednesday, so the Seahawks game hasn't happened yet, but I have a decision to make, and Joey B might get the start for my dynasty team. Nick, how does not Tyler Boyd, how does T. Higgins affect that Bengals offense from a fantasy perspective?
I mean, I feel like you pretty much are able to start any of them every single week. All three of those wide receivers, you could start Joe Burrow most weeks, unless if he's playing one of those really top dogs. And obviously Joe Mixon, you're starting every week. It looks like he's dinged up, but I mean, we'll see where it goes from there, but I feel like all of them are startable no matter what. I think it's just a bigger uptick to Burrow, and I agree with you guys. Tyler Boyd's going to be the one that really gets the downtick. I imagine that Jair will probably be following him most of the game, Boyd most of the game. So we'll see how it goes. But Boyd would be the only one that I'm really worried about with the T. Higgins return.
All right, so keep it on the Bengals. Joe Mixon did not practice today. He's week to week with a high ankle sprain. I don't like the sound of this. It doesn't sound like he's going to play Sunday, but again, we won't really know until Friday if he does practice or not. So Samaje Perine could get the start for the Bengals. Is he a guy that you're even considering playing in a league? Nick, I'll start with you first.
I am a Christian McCaffrey and Joe Mixon owner without the Chuba Hubbard handcuff because I dropped him the week before the injury. So I'll be honest, I'm looking to play him in one league, but it's literally because I do not have any depth at running back. If you're debating playing him over one of the guys you typically play at your RB1 or RB2 spot, I mean, I really wouldn't be looking to. But if you're looking to replace, Dave Montgomery, who's hurt, or Joe Mixon, like this is a guy you could play. The Packers are a very favorable matchup, but I imagine they're playing from behind most of the game anyway. Maybe you see a little bit of a shootout between the two. So, I mean, there's definitely some upside to it and some points to get on the board. But he's not the ideal guy. I think he probably finishes as a low-end RB2, maybe a high-end RB3.
What about you, Cody? Is Samaje Perine somebody you're going to play this week? Nope. I know part of him. So,
He's
Cody, answer my question here. Help me out here. I have a predicament where my running back too. Javonte just said it every week. Said it every week. Yeah, this J.K. Dobbins really screwed me on this one.
I saw a great stat about Devonta Williams, where the most forced tackles this year was Nick Chubb with 18. The second most is Devonta Williams.
He won the. I don't know if you guys
17.
watched. I don't know if you guys watch
way less snaps.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys watch Good Morning Football, but I think it's Kyle Brandt does a really phenomenal segment. I watched it last week live when I was doing stuff with my dog in the morning or whatever after he woke me up to pee. He does a really cool segment called Angry Runs, where like he shows up like 3 runs of just like an angry runner, almost like a Marshawn type thing. It's like whoever he thinks had the best angry run wins like a key or something like that. It's a fun segment, but Javonte did win it last week. Alrighty. And I guess I should ask this too. If Joe Mixon does play and you're setting him in your lineups, are you worried about the injury at all?
He's not playing. If he truly has a high ankle sprain, he's not playing.
Yeah,
I don't think so either.
Pretty much every player across the sprain misses not 1 week, multiple weeks. I'm really concerned about it. I don't imagine he hits the IR if they haven't already done it. But I mean, I'm concerned as an owner that you're going to miss 2-3 weeks,
and
you're not going to know until 2-3 days before the game or game time.
Another running back that is hurt is David Montgomery. More updates on that. He has a sprained knee. He's expected to be out around their week 10 bye. So he'd miss 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Missed 5 games. That's what we expected anyway, 4 to 5. He'd get another 2 weeks the rest coming off the bye. So that means Damian Williams is locked in for the next 4 to 5 weeks. Is he a guy that you're now comfortable starting at your RB2? I'll start with you, Nick.
Yeah, I picked him up off the waivers because 0-4 and top 5 in scoring in a 10-man league. Yeah, love to see it. But yeah, I'm picking him up. I'm playing him in a 2-flex league. Only week I'm going to play 4 running backs. It's an interesting one, but that's what I went last year, and it worked out. So we'll see if I can turn the tides with that. But Damian Williams should easily be locked into your lineups with Montgomery out. Without a question in my mind.
What about you, Cody? Is Damian Williams a running back 2 in your eyes with Montgomery out?
Yeah, just on volume alone. He was a solid running back in Kansas City. Never really got very much volume with the Bears. I mean, he's got an easy path to 20 touches a week. It's just, can he hold up? I mean, he's already banged up. That's the only downside. He's a great pass catcher, pretty decent runner. Yeah, if he's healthy and he's playing, he's an RB2 every week.
If only the Bears had some running back depth, like the second best running back in fantasy football right now. I can't believe they let that guy go, man. Cordell Patterson, I can't believe they let him go. Yeah, that's a joke. We'll see how he does Sunday in London, though. Let's keep it on the Bears for a celebration. I wish I could play like Celebrate Good Times, but there's probably a copyright on that. Matt Nagy has stopped being an idiot. He started to use his brain. Finally, he said that Justin Fields is officially the starter for the rest of the season, or for now at least. They're benching Andy Dalton, not due to health concerns, because they're giving the ball to Justin Fields. Cody, I'll let you start with this one. How does this affect the fantasy outlook of guys like Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, Damian Williams, anybody else on that Bears offense?
Obviously, it's an upgrade. Justin Fields is a better passer, obviously a better runner, and he is 100% the better option for the Bears going forward with how awful their offensive line is at pass blocking. But this decision wasn't on Matt Nagy. This was the ownership saying, Justin Fields is starting. We don't care what your opinion is anymore.
What about you, Nick? How does it affect the rest of those Bears?
There is no freaking way Matt Nagy said we're starting Justin Fields. Someone above him told him you're starting Justin Fields or your job is over, and that's what happened. But I hate the decision. This is a poor matchup. They're going to get lit up by this Raiders defensive line. It's going to be a tough day for Justin Fields. The receivers have tough matchups as it is against that team. I know they suffered some injuries on Monday night, but I mean, either way, they still managed to lock down Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. They're going to do the same thing with Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson. They haven't found production anyway. I see it incredibly hard for them to do it against that Raiders defense that looks a lot better than we thought going into the year. The Bears are the easiest team that they've faced, and they've struggled all year. So I'm extremely worried for Justin Fields with that terrible offensive line against that defensive line with horrible matchups for everyone on the team. Outside to Cole Kmet, and Cole Kmet, I'm not going to start anywhere. Anyway, I'm not. I mean, you got to like it as a Bears fan that he's going to see the reps, but this is not the game where I'm touching pretty much anyone. I think I benched Allen Robinson for the first time this week.
All right, and our last bit of news, Josh Gordon will be fired up for Sunday Night Football. Chiefs will be, I think they're home. Are they home this week? They are, right, against the Bills?
Yep.
In Arrowhead, yeah. So Josh Gordon's first game as a Kansas City Chief, his first game in, I don't think he didn't play last year, right? He hasn't played in, over 20 months now, something like that?
His last game was end of 2019.
Yeah, so he hasn't played in 20 months. Is Josh Gordon a guy you're starting on Sunday night, Cody?
No. God, no. I can't wait for this fascination with Josh Gordon, who hasn't been good since 2014, to be over. The dude is done. He is dusted. He might have a game where he catches 4 balls and scores a touchdown. Cool. Not interested.
And then the NFL posts on Instagram, oh my God, Josh Gordon's back after that game. They'll put ESPN will put the stat line with the fire emojis and all that.
No, I'm ready to never have to talk about Josh Gordon again.
So
every time he's gone for 18 months, he comes back.
Hold on,
like,
I got a scenario. I got a scenario. You could choose one to never talk about again. Josh Gordon, Cordell Patterson, Dalton Schultz.
Cordell Patterson. I hate Cordell
Josh
Patterson.
Gordon. I can't stand talking about Josh Gordon. It's ridiculous. The dude hasn't had a meaningful fantasy season in 6 years. And in 3 of those years, he wasn't on a football field. I understand he's gifted. I understand he's really athletic. He's old now.
He's a 30
I'm done
for 30.
talking about Josh Gordon.
He's a 30 for 30 waiting to happen. A 30 for 30 in NFL films. That's what I want to see. The football stuff, we'll see what he does, but he's going to be a phenomenal 30 for 30 one day. Nick, is Josh Gordon a guy that you're starting Sunday night?
Nope, not starting him. And just to answer that question, I'll talk about Cordell Patterson. I'm not even rostering him. I'd rather talk about Cordell Patterson for our entire Sunday live show than have to talk about I'll talk about Josh Gordon for our entire live show versus talk about Cordell Patterson one more time this season. But I know it's going to happen, so
yeah,
it's being a shame.
So I'm out on Josh Gordon too, but it should be a fun game. All right, we're going to kick it to lock or flop. We're going to give you 3 players from each position and tell you if they are an absolute lock or an absolute flop for your lineups this week. So let's start off with the quarterbacks, and the graphic went up perfectly. No issues this week for the video version of the show. All right, so our quarterbacks this week are Matt Ryan against the Jets in London, Justin Herbert against the Browns at SoFi Stadium. Hopefully there's not another lightning delay. And Kirk Cousins at home against the Lions. So let's start off with Matty Ice, and Nick, I'll start off with you. Is Matt Ryan a lock or a flop going up against the Jets?
He's a flop. No rushing upside. The surprise of the season has been the Jets have been terrible at stopping the run game and phenomenal at stopping the pass game. They've allowed so little point. I think it's the second least amount of points to opposing wide receivers. That's a direct correlation to Matt Ryan's production. Unfortunately, Cordell Patterson should have another nice game. Mike Davis might have a good game as well in here, but I don't think this is the Matt Ryan game.
Cody?
He's a flop for me. The Jets' defensive line is legit. Atlanta's pass blocking is absolutely abysmal. I think the Jets might sack him 5 times. I think Matt Ryan's dusted. I'm sorry. I love Matty Ice, but he might be dusted.
He's a flop for me as well. The Jets defense has not allowed a fantasy quarterback to go over 20 points yet. And yeah, they haven't faced the best quarterbacks, but Sam Darnold had 18, Tannehill had 18, Bridgewater had 6, and Mac Jones, I think, had 16. I forget Mac Jones's number, but none of them have gone over 20 points. And I know Matt Ryan's a more talented quarterback than those guys, but from a fantasy perspective, he's only scored 20 fantasy points once in 4 weeks. The game's at 9:30 a.m. I don't know how jet lagged they'll be. I forget when they're landing, but for me, Matt Ryan's going to be a flop. I think there's 10 quarterbacks out there that'll have a better stat line than him. Let's go with Justin Herbert against the Browns at SoFi Stadium. Nick, is Herbert a lock or a flop?
I'm locking him in. Last 2 weeks, he's averaging 25 points per game. The Cleveland defense is obviously extremely talented, and it's going to be a tough out for them, but I think Justin Herbert is putting on an MVP caliber season. They were my pick before the year to upset the shock the world and go to the Super Bowl. I'm sticking with Herbert the entire year long. I love him. I just love the player that he is. I think he's a tremendous leader. I think he shows up in this Browns game and shows that the Chargers are a real contender against a real team.
Cody, lock or flop Justin Herbert?
You have to lock Herbert in. The way he's playing, it is a terrifying matchup. The Browns defense has been absolutely insane this year. They're going to have to double Myles Garrett. And the secondary it's been no joke. I'm excited to see how Herbert plays. I don't see a scenario where you have another quarterback good enough to bench him in a 12-team league, so he's got to be a lock for me. But I'm not expecting a lineup day, a back-end quarterback one day for Herbert.
He's a flop for me. The Browns defense has been arguably the best defense in the league. They've only allowed one quarterback to go over 20 points, and it was Pat Mahomes, who's the best quarterback in the league in that shootout in Arrowhead week 1. Last week, they were the only team, the only time that Kirk Cousins has scored less than 20 fantasy points. He only scored 10. He scored half of that. And the Browns traveled to Minnesota for that one too, I believe, if I remember that one correctly. So he's a flop for me. I think you could have a quarterback that's better than him on your roster. If you have Sam Darnold against the Eagles, I'm playing Sam Darnold against Justin Herbert this week because I think Darnold has a better stat line. The Browns are going to play defense. The Browns are going to run the ball. This will be a low-scoring game. I'm not sure either team hits 20. The winning team might, but I don't think Herbert scores enough points here to become a top 10 quarterback on the week, so he's a flop. Let's go with Kirk Cousins. He's had 3 weeks with 20-plus fantasy points and 1 week without last week against the Browns, but a favorable matchup against those Lions. Cody, is Kirk Cousins a lock or a flop?
He's a lock, baby. The Detroit Lions will cure your problems. I love Kirk this week. I mean, Justin Jefferson's absolutely gonna go nuts on Sunday.
What about you, Nick? Lock or flop, Kirk Cousins?
I think Kirk's gonna have a good day. He only has one turnover on the year, and we know Kirk Cousins will have 2 good games, 1 bad game. He had the bad game. He's gonna have a good one against the Lions. But, I mean, the more I'm thinking about it, the quarterback position has been so deep this year. I feel like every week there's 20 guys that get over 20 points, and it's not really up for debate. I think that there's other guys you can stream that present much more upside. As much as I like the matchup, I think Kirk won't disappoint you. But I think I'd look for someone with more upside if I could. So
who has more upside?
Trey Lance. If you have Trey Lance, I'm playing.
You would play Trey Lance against Arizona because Chandler Jones is having a field day. Chandler Jones is having a 5-course meal. Chandler Jones is eating Trey Lance alive. A salad,
Trey Lance
pasta,
will outscore Kirk
chicken.
Cousins.
No, it's not happening.
I would play this week. I would play Kirk Cousins over Joe Burrow, over Justin Herbert. I would play him over, let's see, Sam Darnold. I would play him over Daniel Jones. I would play him over who's a couple other in that range.
What about Derek Carr? Derek Carr against the Bears.
Man, that's really. I'd probably go Carr.
Carr's been good this year too.
Carr had a pretty off game on Monday night, but the Bears are the perfect remedy for him.
Right.
I do really like Cousins. I like him a lot this week. The deal with Cousins is when you put pressure on him, that's when he starts to fall apart. He struggles against good defenses. The Lions do not have a pass rush. They don't have good linebackers. They don't have good secondary. Kirk Cousins, he could easily throw 253 tutties.
Yeah, I'm all in on Kirk Cousins. What do you got for me? You got something in mind? Let's hear it.
Clip this. Trey Lance outscoring Kirk Cousins. You can embarrass me on Tuesday if it's that bad.
All right, because Chandler Jones is going to feast. He's getting his fork and his knife. He's putting his bib on. He's going to have a feast with Trey Lance.
Nope.
Especially if Trent Williams is out. I haven't looked at the 49ers injury report, but he might be out too. Kirk Cousins is a lock for me. He's had 7 total touchdowns in 2 games against the Lions last year. So that's, again, averaging 3.5 per game, basically. I think he scores 3 today on Sunday. Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen should be locked into your lineups. Obviously, Dalvin Cook is too. If you have any of those Vikings, I think they're going to have a big day against the Lions. It's a get-right game. It could be close because the Vikings defense hasn't been great this year. But, again, it's a game that you play Kirk Cousins in. All right, we're going to kick it now to the running backs. We have Miles Sanders going up against the Panthers in Carolina. Clyde Edwards-Helaire at home against the Bills on Sunday night. And then Damien Williams going to Las Vegas. So let's start with Miles Sanders against the Panthers. Cody, you're a Miles Sanders owner. Are you locking him into your lineups this week, though?
Nope. I own Miles Sanders in multiple leagues, and he is on my bench in every one of them.
Who are you playing? Do you know off the top of your head who you're playing over him?
I'm playing Cordell Patterson over him in one league, and then in another league, I'm playing Damian Williams.
All right. For me, he's a flop.
He's just not getting enough touches.
Kenneth Gainwell is eating into his touches. The Eagles have been more of a pass-first offense with Jalen Hurts, and on top of that, they're playing from behind a lot. So Miles Sanders isn't getting the workload that I'd hope he would. I think Kenneth Gainwell had like 8 targets because Miles Sanders isn't catching the ball. So now you have a running back who I think he's shorter too, if I'm correct. He's a shorter running back. He's not a bulldozer. He's not pushing the pile. He's not moving the chains, and he's not scoring touchdowns. This is what I was worried about with Miles Sanders and why I avoided him. It's why I was drafting a guy like David Montgomery or a Chris Carson, who I'm a little worried about, or a James Robinson, who's starting to show up in that round 3 to 4 range. And I was saying, and Deandre Swift too. Out of those 4 or 5 guys that was being drafted in rounds 3 and 4, Miles Sanders was the last guy that I wanted. I didn't touch him in any leagues for this reason because I didn't trust him. Last year, I think he only had it was like only 2 fantasy games over like 20, 25 points, and that's because he rushed for 75-yard fluke touchdowns. So Miles Sanders, I am worried about for the rest of the season if you're a Miles Sanders owner. He's a flop this week. If you have a third running back that you could slot in there, I know the position is thin, but yeah, if you have somebody out there, I think you bench Miles Sanders this week. And the Panthers defense has been pretty decent too, even though Zeke had a field day. He had his own feast the other day. What about you, Nick? Is Miles Sanders a lock or a flop?
He's a flop. I pulled his numbers up right now. Week 1, he had 15 touches, 5 targets, 15 between rushing attempts and targets, 15 the following week, 6 the following week, and 10 last week. If you're getting 10 usages a game, that's not enough to be a starter in this league. Right now, he's the running back 33. Kenneth Gainwell looks extremely talented. He looks really good. And I almost Miles Sanders imitation on Kenneth Gainwell more than vice versa. I don't own Miles Sanders anywhere, but if I were an owner, I'm extremely disappointed. I would him as soon as I could.
All right, Clyde Edwards-Helaire on Sunday night against the Bills. Back-to-back weeks with 20-plus fantasy points, I think, or close to it. He's gotten going. So, Cody, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire a lock or a flop?
You can lock him in. He's a back-end he's a mid-range RB3. He's had 2 really good weeks because of touchdowns. He's still not getting that many touches, but in this game, it's going to be high scoring. They're going to be near the goal line. They've been manufacturing ways to get him the ball. He's a lock. Just this game is the total is crazy. He should get in the end zone.
For me, he's somebody you have to lock into your lineup because you drafted him in round 2 or early round 3. However, I think he's flopping. I don't know what his projection is. If one, you can look it up. It's probably like 15, 16. I don't think he hits that without a touchdown. And that Bills defense has been good. Najee Harris had a terrible week 1 against that Bills defense. Then I think the Bills got back-to-back shutouts, or maybe they shut out the Texans for sure, and the Dolphins might have scored, 7 points? And Myles Gaskin didn't look good. I know the Texans don't have anybody, when it comes to them running the ball, but still, that Bills defense has looked like a top 2-3 defense in the league. The Chiefs are going to score points. They'll get their yards, but as for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I don't think he's getting many yards against that Bills defense. I think he desperately needs a touchdown to have a solid fantasy day for this one. So I think you have to play him because the position is thin and as to where you drafted him. But if this was a receiver, I would say you got to bench him. What about you, Nick? Is he a lock or a flop?
You got to flop him. The back-to-back 100-yard games, they're a fluke, and it's not happening against this Buffalo's defense. That's the only way that he found his production prior to those 2 games. He was averaging in week 1 and 2. He was averaging six points a game. He saw the end zone in the last 2 weeks. He could see it again. It's very likely it'll be a high-scoring game, but that Buffalo defense is really, really good, and Clyde is not going to put up 100 yards. Even with a touchdown, you might only see 10 points out of him.
I'm not sold on that defense yet. I'm not sold on that defense
who else
yet.
did they face? Who's their fourth opponent? It was the Steelers.
They faced
the
a
Texans.
terrible Pittsburgh team and lost at home.
Yeah.
And then they faced the Houston Texans, who are hot garbage, with David Mills, who's doesn't belong on the NFL roster. They faced Miami without Tua. The first game without Tua, that was awful. And then I can't remember that it was week 1 they lost. Week 2 they beat Washington barely. Gave up
Washington?
30 to Washington.
Yep.
You telling me the Chiefs ain't putting 40 on them?
They will, but I don't know.
The running back
is hilarious, dude. The running back's not. Tyree
Hilaire he'll have double digits.
All right, we'll see what happens with that. Damian Williams against the Raiders this week. Nick, is he a lock or a flop? A hot target off the waiver wire?
As I said, I have him locked in. I'm still keeping him locked in. He's going to see so much usage. There's going to be no time for Justin Fields, not even to run with those legs. He's tossing those quick, short routes to Williams. He's going to see a ton of catches, a ton of targets. I almost see like a J.D. McKissick game from last year where he saw like 13, 14 targets just without a problem, just because there was no time for the quarterback. I can see the same exact outcome for Damien Williams. I think it's like perfectly set up for him to have that type of a game where, he's probably not going to find the end zone, but he's going to see double-digit targets. And what more do you want from a running back that's already going to get 10 touches?
What about you, Cody? Is he a lock or a flop?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. I'm starting him over Miles Sanders. He's going to get 20 touches. Lock him in.
You got to lock him in. The Raiders just let up 30 points to Austin Eckler. Tyson Williams got like 17 week 1 in a committee. Even Myles Gaskin got 10, and Gaskin's not playable right now. So you got to lock him in. The Raiders defense is not good against the rush. They're good at sacking the quarterback, but not against the rush. So lock in Damian Williams as your running back 2 this week. Alrighty, wide receivers. Deontay Johnson making his return against the Broncos in Pittsburgh. Laviska Shenault Jr. going to Jacksonville. Maybe he'll hit up a bar with Urban Meyer after. I don't know. Allen Robinson going up against the Raiders. Let's start with Deontay Johnson against your Broncos, Cody. Tough pass defense. Probably the best secondary in the league. Is Deontay Johnson a lock or a flop?
He's a flop. You want to know what Denver is going to do? They're going to load up the box and press cover these guys and not give them any room, and Big Ben won't throw over the top. This game's going to be ugly. this game's going to be awful. Najee Harris is the only playable guy in this game that I feel super confident starting. And that's only because he's going to catch like 7 or 8 balls behind the line of scrimmage for his whole 13 points he'll have.
What about you, Nick? Lock or flop Deontay Johnson?
Lock him in. Week 1, 10 targets. Week 2, 12. Last week, 13. The guy's going to get it off usage alone.
For those of you that are watching the video portion, I have the stats right. Nick just stole my talking point. The target numbers are insane. Big Ben's going to lean on him. Is he going to score a touchdown? Maybe, maybe not. But if he gets 10 targets and he catches 9 of them or 8 of them and he has 50 yards, that's a flex play. You're probably playing 3-4 receivers in your leagues. That's a flex play. I think you play him this week. Temper your expectations, but you play him this week. Let's go with Laviska Shenault Jr. against the Titans. Nick, I'll let you use this one first. Is he a lock or a flop?
I like Laviska Shenault. I love the matchup. The Titans are horrendous in the secondary. I like Trevor Lawrence a lot this week, even without Chark there. I think, Chark not being there only opens up the floor a lot higher for Shenault because he's going to see a lot more usage. I love him this week. I'm putting him in all my lineups that I own him.
You're playing Laviska Shenault and you're playing Marvin Jones this week. The Titans have given up the second most fantasy points to wide receivers. You have 2 guys here that are just going to eat the ball up alive. You got to play him this week. You got to play your Jaguars. And Shenault, I think, had 17 fantasy points last week or something like that. He's starting to get in his groove now with that receiving core a little less, crowded. So I think you're locking him into your lineup. What about you, Cody?
Yeah, he's a lock. He's going to get so much more usage with Chark out. I love Laviska. They're going to use him different ways. The first of the year, they were using him around the line of scrimmage a lot more. Now they're kind of getting him down the field. He's still getting those short range targets, which helps. But yeah, I love Laviska going forward.
Alrighty. I love him too. So let's go to Allen Robinson. He has his new quarterback in there now. He's had 4 straight weeks with under 10 fantasy points. Is that the number? So they're going to the Raiders. Nick, is Allen Robinson? He's one of your guys. Is he a lock or a flop?
I've loved him every year up until this one. I hate the matchup. Even with the cornerback injuries, Allen Robinson in week 1 saw double-digit targets. Since then, 6 was his ceiling, and we projected him to get 160 targets on the year. It's just not going to be that year. Darnell Mooney was drafted as the wide receiver 61. I'm pretty sure Allen Robinson is wide receiver 60 at the moment. So,
Mooney got 10 targets last week.
Yeah, and Mooney saw the production. Mooney looks good. I hate all the players in the matchup outside of Damian Williams, but Allen Robinson I'm benching this week, and you just got to see. If he has a good week on your bench, you got to be grateful just because you want to see it happen eventually so you could continue to play him, but I can't feel comfortable playing him knowing in the last 3 weeks he's only saw 12 targets.
For me, I think I got to know who your receivers are. For example, in one league that I'm pretty deep in receiver in, my 4 are, off the top of my head, it's OBJ, Godwin, Jefferson, Woods, Corey Davis. So there's 5 right there. In another league, my receivers are Tyreek Hill, Amari Cooper, OBJ, Tyler Boyd, and I have 1 or 2 others on my bench. So I need to know who your receivers are if you're benching your 3rd round pick, but the production's not there. 11 targets week 1 against that Rams. Then you have 4, 6, and 3. In those last 3 weeks, he's only caught 9 balls. The most fantasy points he's had was 10.4 in week 2, and he scored a touchdown. So it's really 4 points outside the touchdown. However, if you're starting 4 receivers and you don't have a guy with a great matchup, I think you're still starting him. I think you got to give him 1 more week now that he has Justin Fields would have gotten the starting reps the last 2 weeks. I still think the talent's there. I still think you have to start him. But again, temper your expectations. If he gets to 50 yards and 4 receptions and maybe a touchdown, then that's a positive sign for me. And Cody.
No, I want no part of Allen Robinson. The whole start your studs thing is long gone. You can start your studs when they play like studs. Allen Robinson has not played like a stud this year. He's not a 3rd round pick. He's not playing like a 13th round pick. He's been bad. He's not getting the volume, and that's what makes Allen Robinson good. I would play Darnell Mooney over him in a heartbeat. Darnell Mooney, 10 targets every week this season. That tells you everything you need to know about the future. I'm sorry, but Allen Robinson, I said it last week with Robert Woods. He got bailed out scoring the touchdown. He still didn't get that much volume. Volume is king for receivers like that. They need it. Allen Robinson lives off 12 to 15 targets a game. If he's not getting that, he's not going to get in the end zone 6-7 times this year. He has to get 6 to 8 catches every week to pay off his crazy high projection floor that everyone wants him to meet. He's not going to score 15 points getting 5-6 targets.
No. All right. Last and not least, we have the tight ends. Jared Cook going up against the Browns. He's home. Max Williams is home against the 49ers. And Zach Ertz is going to Carolina. Let's start with Jared Cook. Is he a lock or flop for you, Cody?
He's a flop. He's not a top 12 tight end unless he scores a touchdown. And I don't like projecting touchdowns, especially against the Browns. He's a flop for me.
What about you, Nick?
Regardless of, I agree with Cody. He's a flop, but on top of that, what's it called? Justin Herbert used 3 different tight ends last week. Jared Cook kind of had the role solidified at the beginning of the year, and they're really moving the ball around. He had a good week last week, but they could not get the ball going to Allen or Mike Williams, even with the 2 injuries at the cornerback position for the Raiders. So. I think that they'll have a much better bounce back week, even against a tougher matchup in Cleveland. But I don't think the tight end position is stable enough there where I trust starting him over guys that are going to see the field, 75% of the time, and you just hope that they get the ball thrown their way and get into the end zone.
The Browns have only allowed 1 tight end to score more than 5 points, and it was Travis Kelce. So I want no part of Jared Cook this week against that Browns defense. Like I just spoke about a couple minutes ago, the Browns D is tough. I don't think Herbert has a great game. You got to temper your expectations against those Browns. Max Williams, very up and down, 2 weeks over 15 points, and the other 2, I think, was less than 5 going up against the 49ers. Is he a lock or flop for you, Cody?
He's a flop. You already said it. The target numbers way too inconsistent. He is not a top 12 tight end. He's more in the back end tight end 2. If you're desperate, he's an okay play, but no, he is a flop for me.
How about you, Nick?
Yeah, he's got to find the end zone, and San Francisco is not the easiest team to do it against, as much as that offense is rolling. But there's too many mouths to feed there where you're really banking on that touchdown and him getting 5 targets, 4 catches, a good 30, 40 yards and into the end zone in what's already a crowded offense. I don't see myself doing it for the entire year unless there's 1 or 2 major injuries to the team.
Yeah, he's a flop for me too. Like Nick said, there's too many mouths to feed. It seems like every week there's a new second favorite receiving option, but AJ Green might be solidifying that spot. So Max Williams, I am all out on. How about Zach Ertz? I'm going to kick this one off. For me, Zach Ertz is a lock. The last 2 weeks, he's had 7 targets and then 8 targets, over 15 fantasy points. He's out targeting Dallas Goedert at the moment. Hurts likes to use his tight ends. It's more of a throwing offense. It's not a run first. They're playing from behind. He's probably on your waiver wire too. So if you had Logan Thomas, go scoop him up. If your tight end position is weak, like mine was, go scoop him up. I have Gesicki and Dawson Knox, so I don't need him right now. But if you're in need of a tight end, I think that's a position you could target. And I think that's a player you could target that's going to get 5 targets a game. And if he gets 40 yards, that's 9 points right there with the chance of a touchdown. That's solid for a tight end that you're picking up off the waiver wire in weeks 4 or 5. What about you, Cody? Is Zach Ertz a lock or a flop?
He's a lock because he is playing a lot more the past couple weeks. His targets are up. His snap count is up. They run a lot of 2 tight end set, but when they're running 1 tight end set, it's Zach Ertz on the field, which is absolutely shocking to me. I thought Zach Ertz was dead. I thought he wasn't playing another down in Philly. I guess the Philly cheesesteaks were a little too good for him to go away for good. So I'm locking him in. I love this game. I think it's going to be a positive game script for them to throw it. So I'm playing Ertz.
And for you, Nick?
Yeah, same exact thing. If he had a drop touchdown wide open in the end zone last week, he would have finished as a top 5 tight end if it wasn't for that. So Zach Ertz should be locked into your lineup with that many targets for the tight end position. For a guy that's probably still on your waiver wire, that's a good guy to target, especially if you're dealing with Logan Thomas injury.
All right, that was lock or flop for this week. Hopefully that helped you out with your lineups. And if you still need help with your lineups, join the live show 11 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday. We're going to end the show off with our rapid fire start sit segment. One player from each, or two players from each game, one from each team. We tell you which one we would rather start. Let's start off with the 9:30 a.m. game. Corey Davis or Cordell Patterson? Nick.
I refuse to pick Cordell Patterson, so I'm going Corey Davis.
What about you, Cody?
I'm going Cordell Patterson. I hate it, but I have to.
I want consistency in my players for my flex spots. Give me Cordell Patterson. Corey Davis hasn't shown me consistency yet, but after a good week last week, I'm a little bit more confident. Next up, we have Randall Cobb versus Tyler Boyd. Nick?
I'll go. Give me Tyler Boyd. I know it's going to be. I think Cobb relied a lot on those touchdowns. I think he only had 5 catches or 5 targets. Maybe it was 5 for 5 in the 2 touchdowns. That's where he saw his production. I think Boyd has a little more solidified of a target share in the offense, even with the concerns that all 3 of us have in this matchup.
What about you, Cody?
If MVS is out, give me Cobb. If he is in, I want nothing to do with Randall Cobb. So if MVS is out, I'll take Cobb. If MVS is in, I'll take Boyd.
I'm not scared of MVS. Give me Cobb in this one. I'm a Tyler Boyd owner, and T. Higgins coming back just makes me nervous. If you're a fan of the Bengals, if you're a fan of Joe Burrow, you love T. Higgins coming back. That offense is going to light things up. From a team perspective, it's awesome to have those 3 guys at receiver. From a fantasy owner of Tyler Boyd, the production may not be there. And I think Rodgers, he wanted Randall Cobb. He used Randall Cobb. I think Marquise Valdes-Scantling's job is now he's wide receiver 3. I think Randall Cobb's going to get his target. So I'm going to take Cobb. What about DeAndre Swift or Adam Thielen? This is a tough one. Cody, you're a Swift guy, so I'll let you go first.
DeAndre Swift, baby, all day.
And for you, Nick?
Going with DeAndre Swift as well. The Vikings just let up a ton of points to Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and I think the Lions have the only.
I thought Chubb had a bad game. Didn't Chubb have a bad game?
Chubb still finished with 100 yards, though. I think he finished with 12 points. Okay. So it wasn't the best game in the world, obviously, but Swift has a lot more receiving upside than Chubb does. He should have no problem seeing production against this team.
Give me Adam Thielen. I'll be hooked on a Thielen this week. I'm hooked on all the Vikings this week. Kirk Cousins, Jefferson, and Thielen, they should be locked into all of your lineups. They're going to put on a show. I'm almost laughing looking at this one because we couldn't figure out who to play for this game. In the point of the segment is to try to give you guys for your flex spots that you'll actually play. Marquez Callaway or J.D. McKissick? Cody.
J.D. McKissick. I guess.
Yeah, I'm with J.D. McKissick too because Callaway is not no consistency right now. What about you, Nick?
I'm gonna take Callaway just because he sees the field for a lot more than J.D. McKissick does. But I dropped Callaway.
2 targets this past week.
Yeah, but he sees the field a lot more. And I'll just take knowing
getting that cardio in.
I dropped Callaway in our league, and we have a 10-man deep bench.
Yeah, I dropped Callaway everywhere I had him. That dude's a bum. Yeah.
Cortland Sutton or Chase Claypool? Cody?
Sutton.
I think I'll take Sutton too. Claypool's coming off an injury. He missed last week. He did miss last week, right? I'm correct on that. Or was it the week before? Yeah, he did miss last week. Yeah. Deontay Johnson's the only Steeler receiver that I'll play. Then I'll play and then I'll also play Najee Harris. Big Ben, I just want to get this point out there right now. Big Ben is the Undertaker of the NFL right now because this dude does not want to leave. He wants to keep coming back. He wants to keep playing. Like, you're washed, dude. Like, you could barely even throw the ball. It's like the Undertaker. And somebody made a joke on Twitter that Big Ben's going to have a bad year this year and feel like he has to come back next year to prove himself to have one final hurrah. Like, dude, like, no, just retire.
$40 million is the reason he's playing this year.
Set your helmet down on the field. Do the whole shtick. Like, get out of there.
Nick, $40 million is why he's playing this year.
I'm playing Chase Claypool. Big Ben's going to throw the ball 50 times against this Broncos defense.
Ugh, man, and that arm may fall off at that point. He's going to need a Bucky
We
Barnes
thought it was going to
arm.
fall off for the past 4 years where he's been throwing it 50 times a game.
Yeah, but this time he's got a noodle arm. This time he throws. This time he throws like me.
His arm is horrendous, but
he throws a football just like I throw a football. Terribly. It's not good. Julio Jones or Marvin's Jones. Which Jones are we playing here, Cody?
Marvin Jones. I love the Jaguars this weekend.
Is Julio playing this week? I should have really looked that one up.
He should.
He should. Yeah, I think he should.
Play.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I didn't see him in the injury report when I looked earlier. I'm playing Marvin Jones. Play your Jaguars. Play Marvin Jones. Play Laviska Shenault. Julio. Like that Titans offense isn't. They're not.
It's Derrick Henry. It's Derrick Henry. That's their offense.
I'm against the grain here. I'm taking Julio. Julio's the only receiving option there. If A.J. Brown is still out, which I'm assuming he will be, I'll take Julio Jones and
he's
Ryan
practicing.
Oh, he is practicing? Yeah. Okay, so if A.J. Brown's there, then I'm going with MJJ. If A.J. is out and Julio is playing, I'm taking Julio.
Brandon Cooks or Jacoby Myers, Cody?
Brandon Cooks. Gets so much usage.
Yep, I'm with Brandon Cooks too. I don't want to touch any Patriots at the moment.
I'm against the grain again. I love Jacoby Myers this week against that Texans defense. Jacoby Myers has seen a ton of usage out of all their wide receivers. He's going to see the most usage again. And Brandon Cooks is the only useful wide receiver on the other team. But the Patriots defense has been good and just shut down 3 Buccaneers wide receivers. So I'm not concerned.
Jalen Waddle or Antonio Brown, Cody?
Jalen Waddle he's gonna get peppered with targets. And the Tampa secondary is bad. They just lost Davis. I don't know how long he's out for. Their secondary's dropping like flies.
They're banking on Richard Sherman right now. They're banking on
Miami's
Sherman
gonna get
and Waddle
railed.
will burn him. Yeah.
They're gonna get railed.
Yeah.
So Waddle's gonna have to catch the ball.
Yeah, this is a tough one, but I'm gonna go with Jalen Waddle just because of the fact that Antonio Brown's it's his first game back after COVID, or if he had COVID, and we don't know. He didn't play last week.
No, he played it.
No, he did.
He played.
Oh, he did.
He played it.
I forgot.
He
did. Which game did he miss? He did. You're right. Yeah, he missed. He dropped that touchdown.
He missed
the
Rams
watch much
game.
of that game. Yeah, we were recording, so I didn't watch much of that game. Now that I think about it, yeah, you're right on that. Yeah, I'll still.
He cost me thousands and thousands of dollars, so I'm pissed.
What about you, Nick? Are you against the grain again?
I'm against the grain. Give me Antonio Brown. I think Jalen Waddle's he's not a fringe starter. You're starting him more weeks than you're not, but I'm locking in Antonio Brown every single week. So I'm going to take the guy I trust every week over the guy that I debate every week.
Robbie Anderson or Devonta Smith? I'm taking Devonta Smith. I'm not starting Robbie Anderson any week at this point because he hasn't proven anything. I don't want to touch him. Devonta Smith is the solidified number 1 wide receiver over there, and I know they spread the ball around with tight ends, but give me Devonta Smith in this one. Nick?
Give me Robbie. He's going to catch a bomb this week.
Thank you, Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson saw double-digit targets last week with Christian McCaffrey out. I'm taking Robbie.
I'm against the grain. Darnell Mooney or Hunter Renfrow, Cody?
Darnell Mooney. I love the targets.
And for you, Nick?
There is not a shot Mooney's finding the end zone. Give me Renfrow.
I'm with Nick on Renfrow too. I'm looking this up very quickly, but I think Renfro's had over 15 fantasy points every week. Or I'm going to check it out right now. He's had 13, 10, 18, and 16. So not over 15 each time, but his targets are 9, 7, 6, and 8. He's had I'm taking Hunter Renfrow in this one because I need to see something from that Bears offense. I need to see some consistency. So I'm taking Hunter Renfrow.
Hey, how about Justin Fields threw 17 passes on Sunday against the Lions. 10 of them went to Darnell Mooney. That is a 59% target share.
Yes, it's pretty ridiculous. Hopefully you guys drafted Mooney in your leagues like me and Cody did because I have 4 shares of Darnell Mooney at the moment. Brandon Ayuk or AJ Green, Cody?
I'm not playing Brandon Ayuk over Max Williams. Give me AJ Green, who's consistently got 6 targets every week this season.
And for you, Nick?
Brandon Ayuk, I ain't starting you, buddy. I'll go AJ Green.
I hate the 49ers from a fantasy perspective and from a team perspective. Sorry, Vic. Seahawks won. Sorry, 49ers are still the baby brother. You're finishing fourth in the division. I'm starting AJ Green. 13, 16, and 17 fantasy points the last 3 weeks. 6 targets in all 4 games. He's had 2 touchdowns. Like, his yards are going up. His targets are going up. I think he's solidifying himself as the number 2 receiver. So give me AJ Green. CeeDee Lamb or Sterling Shepard. I believe Shepard practiced today, so he should be playing. So Cody?
CeeDee.
Yeah, I'm playing CD too, but I think Shepard's been good on the year, so I think he's worth a start if you have 3 or 4 receivers that you got to play.
I'm a little worried about Shepard, knowing how well Tony played last week. I think he's going to see a lot more of the field this week. I think he'll come to Slayton, but I mean, I think CeeDee Lamb's going to be, 100% of snap. He didn't catch the ball, so I'm taking Lamb.
OBJ or Mike Williams? Nick?
I'll go Odell Beckham. It's tough to say because I think Mike Williams had a rough week last week, but he's been, I think, the top 3 receiver for the weeks 1 through 3, maybe top 5. But I like Odell's matchup here. I don't like Mike Williams against the speedy secondary and Greedy Williams.
Cody?
I'm going Mike Williams. The dude's a beast. If the Chargers are going to win, it's going to have to be Mike Williams.
Yeah. I'm taking Mike Williams too. I don't doubt OBJ's talent. I doubt Baker after last week because OBJ should have had an 80-yard touchdown.
I doubt Baker as well.
OBJ, and Nick knows I'm a Baker guy too. OBJ has a ridiculous amount of air yards though through the first 2 weeks. He's like 200-something air yards. So if Baker can just place the ball in his pocket, OBJ is going to be fine, but we'll see. We couldn't find a good one for this game, so we're doing a stack. Do you want the stack of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs or Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill? Cody?
Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Tyreek Hill is going to get blanketed by good old Tre'Davious White. The Bills always take away Tyreek Hill. The last 2 years they've played him, they take away Tyreek Hill. They bracket coverage him, and they let Travis Kelce just run wild against him. I really like Allen and Diggs, especially in this matchup. Kansas City's defense is awful.
I'm with you on that. This is a big test for the Bills' defense. We'll see how good they are. I don't doubt the Chiefs, but I think the Bills have a more favorable matchup. So give me Josh Allen and give me Stephon Diggs.
I am playing against Tyreek Hill. That is your weekly warning.
Yes.
Yes.
He's going nuts. I'm changing my pick.
Hold on, but I have a pending trade for Tyreek Hill in the league. I'm versing him. So
I'm trading Tyreek Hill. You can't have Tyreek Hill. That's not how it works.
I'm going for him in another league. So I'm taking Mahomes and I'm taking Tyreek purely because he's supposed to play me this week.
And for the final matchup, Michael Pittman or Marquise Brown on Monday night. Give me Hollywood. He's looked good the last 2 weeks. Give me Hollywood. He's looked good the last 2 weeks.
Hollywood's looked good all year.
Besides the Lions game where he dropped like 2 touchdhdowns.
That's fine. He's getting tons of usage.
I'm against the grain. I think Michael Pittman is the only reliable receiving option there. I think if you can go trade for Michael Pittman right now, go do it because I think he's a league winner at your flex spot.
Alrighty, that was rapid fire. Hopefully we did help you with your lineups through that and the lock flop. But again, our show Sunday is going to be 11 a.m. Eastern time. I know the game's going to be on. Throw us on in the background. We'll be doing a daily fantasy segment. We'll be doing 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. We'll have our injury report in from the 1 o'clock games, and we're going to answer your questions for the entire show. So if you want to wait till the game ends, we'll still answer your questions from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And we may have the game on a different screen, so we'll be watching it. We'll be reacting live. I'm not playing any Falcons or Jets, but we'll still be watching the game and keeping you updated on that one. So that's on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube live show every single Sunday. If this is your first time watching or listening, thank you for that. Hopefully you did enjoy it. If you did, tell your friends, tweet us, do whatever you got to do. We appreciate that. Again, we're on Tuesdays and Fridays. The audio's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. If you're on Apple, a 5-star rating and a review is greatly appreciated. We're also on YouTube for the video formats of the show at PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. You can follow us on our social media on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at PrimeTimeFFPod, and Facebook is PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Cody, any last words before week 5?
I got nothing. I'm just ready for this weekend of football.
And for you, Nick.
Guys, make sure you pop out to that Sunday show. You get some awesome calls by us, especially Tom Brady being a bust on the week. I don't know what genius said that against the coach. They got him 22 years in a row. Trust me, you're going to want to be there for the live show. Especially, I'll have my Jets hat on. You'll see me throw it every time Calvin Ridley goes deep for 60 yards against my secondary. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss some live Jets reactions from this guy.
You can follow me on Twitter at @TheNickGiacobi for fantasy football and everything else. You probably will see my Seahawks tweets from Thursday night as Aaron Donald has Russell Wilson for a snack and a main course, and just a lot of fun. All right, guys, that's it. Good luck for week 5. I hope you all win except for my opponents. Talk to you on Sunday morning.